And we're gonna go ahead and just go right into it. Walking in place with shoulders, and you can see I'm keeping my feet moving. Doesn't mean you don't need to be big, bombastic steps. They can just be your little movements. Notice I'm doing small circles going forward, and then I'm gonna switch directions with small circles going backwards. Okay. We want to make sure that we keep our hand kind of moving around that shoulder joint, okay? So we don't want to be out here. We don't want to be back here. Be right around that shoulder joint, okay? Going switch directions, going big circles, going forward now. Same thing here. Make sure you're moving around that shoulder joint. Now, you are going to start feeling some buildup of lactic acid. Perfectly normal. That's the burn that we get from exercise. So if you're feeling that, it's okay. Go ahead and shake it out a little bit. Don't shake too hard, just nice and gentle. Then go right back into it, okay? I think we're at big circles going back, so we're gonna go to big circles going back. Okay? Right around that shoulder joint. All right, and then go ahead and come to rest. Give yourself another shake if that's helpful. We're gonna go into what we call snow jacks. So with snow jacks, it's gonna be just like jumping jacks, except we're not jumping. Instead of jumping, what we're gonna do, let's catch that, there we go. So what we're gonna do, notice on my feet, instead of jumping, we're gonna raise our knee till our thighs are about 90 degrees, or rather parallel with the ground. Now, wherever you're comfortable along this movement is fine. The idea is we are doing this full range jumping jack motion, especially with our arms. We're making a nice big sun, reaching all the way out. Nice big circle. Okay. Now notice, I'm not going super fast. I'm going pretty controlled, at a pretty controlled rate. And partly what happens with that is you can actually create a little bit more of an effective movement by not going too fast. You'll notice too, if you go nice and slow, you try to match my pace at home, you're gonna notice a nice burn starting. And so for me, I'm gonna go ahead and shake it out. I'm gonna be done there. Make sure you wanna do that for 45 seconds to a minute, 30 minutes. Do what feels right to you. You'll notice as we go along. There's nothing magical about times here. If you like timing yourself, that's great. And there's lots of really effective ways to do that. However, I prefer to approach it from a more relaxed standpoint, a little more meditative and abstract in approach. And you'll see that as we go along. Ultimately, a lot of what we're going to be, my instruction will be instruction to make sure that you are performing self-regulation or auto-regulation, which is basically a fancy way of saying like you're directing your workout. If you're exhausted and you don't want to keep going through a full, set that I'm going through, rest when you need to rest, okay? There's nothing magical about killing yourself with an exercise. In fact, it can be detrimental to your long-term goals. We like to form a nice, positive, good association with exercise as opposed to, kicking our butts and then not wanting to come back, okay? So, we're going to go to safe. So this movement is going to be just like an umpire calling safe. Okay, so it's kind of like a squat where you step to the side when your arms are moving at the same time. Now, if this is a little advanced for you, that's totally fine. It's not necessarily the easiest move. I want you to substitute this movement for squats, for bodyweight squats, which will actually be our first anaerobic exercise anyway. But if you are going to swap this out for bodyweight squats, make sure you have a nice steady pace because we're going to slow it down in the next part of the workout, which will be our bodyweight squat set. Okay, but you can see how that would be a slightly less complex version of. So if you are comfortable with nice deep squats and your mobility can handle this, I want you coming all the way down to your knees are at 90-degree angles, as if you're sitting down on a low toilet. Notice my arms stay at a T here. They don't come down. stay up high, okay? Okay. So make sure you take a second to rest. Breathe. I like to breathe in my nose and out my mouth. The main reason being that the nostrils bottleneck some of that air. And so it keeps you from going, you know, when you're taking a breath out of your mouth, you get these nice big breaths, which is great when you really need it. But if you don't really need it, it can be really helpful to slow down that air intake for the sake of lowering the heart rate. A lot of the advantage of what we do, fitness in general, is bringing the heart rate up, letting it come back to rest. Bringing your heart rate up, letting it come to rest. Really, it comes down to exposing your body to stressors so that if you come across them, or when you come across them in real life, that you are, or rather your heart, your muscles, your brain, that they're all prepared to do whatever behavior that life has called upon you to do. So on that note, something that we all have to do in our everyday life is go to the bathroom. So one of my favorites, and it's not necessarily because it's going to the bathroom, but it's because of the utilization. One of my favorite exercises, probably my favorite exercise of all time, is simply the bodyweight squat. So when we're going to start with the bodyweight squat, I want you to make sure you settle your feet first, about shoulder width apart. For me, I always like to go a little wider, but you know, I grew up playing football, so I'm a lineman, so I'm used to going down. So I like to go a little wider, but make sure your feet are around shoulder width apart. Back in the day, we used to say parallel feet, but a little bit of a duck bill is the way to go these days. Okay. Parallel's fine too, but this is where I'm comfortable with my knees. Find where you're comfortable. And then you're gonna sit down just like you're sitting down on the toilet. But nice and slow. And you're gonna come back up. And you're gonna come back down. Now notice, I'm not taking time, I'm going nice and slow and controlled, but I'm not resting at the top, I'm not resting at the bottom. This is gonna increase time under tension, allowing you to get to failure quicker, and just makes the exercise much more effective. You'll see, you don't have to sit here and do a bunch of reps. Like, for example, me, I'm already getting pretty tired as is, so make sure that you do this for the amount of time that works for you. Just make sure that you're staying nice and slow and controlled the way that you're seeing me here. Now notice as I'm going, I'm keeping my back nice and flat, okay? As you can notice the slight curve in my lumbar, when we talk about a flat back, slight curve in the lumbar is a natural part of a flat back. So notice as I go down, stays nice and curved there. Now, when I get to the bottom, sometimes there's a little bit of a dip. That's okay. Just make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep that back flat with that slight curve in the lumbar, okay? Again, notice I didn't time myself. I didn't go to a certain amount of reps. Generally speaking, I'm aiming for around 10, depending on the modifications, depending on the purpose of the exercise, all that good stuff. But for the moment, I want you resting here with me. You notice what I'm doing right now is I'm letting my heart rate get back down. Breathing in my nose and out my mouth. Granted, talking while doing all this contributes to diminished oxygen utilization for the movements because you're diverting a certain amount of that into speaking, right? Or it gets more complex than that, but you know, broad strokes. Once we've had a chance to catch our breath, we're gonna go ahead and go into the next portion here. So whenever we work our quads, which is what we're doing with our squats, we wanna make sure we work the other side of our legs too, which is our hamstrings. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do deadlifts, okay? So I'm gonna show you a couple different versions of the deadlift. You do what feels right to you. You'll see what I mean in terms of the difference, okay? So as far as deadlifts go, we're going completely body weight here, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to go to, get your feet settled about shoulder width, soft knees. From this position, you're gonna start it similarly to how we start our squat, okay? So you're gonna go down just a little bit, so you got that slight bend in the knees. Look from the side angle, you can see right about there. You can be a little farther down, whatever it is. I want you to, what you're gonna do this time though is you're gonna attempt to keep these knees, this knee position static. And what we're gonna do is we're going to hinge at the hip. And really that's the only true movement we're doing. I also like to imagine for myself, and often I find this helps clients, imagine kind of pushing your butt up and out behind you will help to accomplish this, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So you start kind of like it's a squat, and then you hinge at the hip, okay? So you notice what I'm doing here. It's probably hard to see from this angle. But what we're doing, we're working the backs of the legs. Let's see. I'm gonna try this angle. Same thing here, keep the back nice and flat, slight curve in that lumbar. And notice, as I go down, my knees stay in the same place, okay? My knees aren't doing a bunch of moving. There's a slight movement, but not too much. And because of the hinging at the hip, and because I've got a static lower back and static knees, what happens is the load goes down. Instead of hitting my lower back, goes down and hits up my hamstrings, goes through the glutes into the hamstrings if you're doing it successfully. Okay? Now from this angle, you can imagine a little more traditional, what you might think of traditional deadlifting, where you see somebody with a barbell and they've got the plates and, you know, they do the whole snatch and clean and all that good stuff. For you, all I want you to worry about is body weight and learning how to apply the tension of the movement onto the hamstrings as opposed to the quads, okay? Now it's really important, I should have mentioned, as you're coming out of this, you want to come out of it the same way that you went into it, okay? So when you're done doing your deadlifts here, you're going to come out of it and you're going to bend those knees a little bit just to make sure that you come out nice and solid, so you're not just coming right out of it, okay? Not the biggest deal, but just make sure that you're coming out of each position, each lift, keeping yourself safe and, you know, doing it more effectively and efficiently as well. I'm going to take a quick break because I need a little water. I'll be right back and we'll resume. Got that dry throw, baby. Okay, folks. It's time to break out those dumbbells, okay? So actually, real quick, before we break out the dumbbells, let's go back into snow jacks just for a second. Oops, excuse me. Snow jacks just for a second. We're just going to get our body moving again, get our heart rate up and going again a little bit. I want you to do this for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, up to a minute. Longer if you want to, but the idea here is really just to get a little cardiovascular movement going amidst our anaerobic work. Again, if you can't go quite as high, that's totally fine. Bring your knee up to where you're comfortable, okay? All right. All right, so now make sure I'm nice and warm, ready to go for our next thing. So we've done bodyweight squats, we've done bodyweight deadlifts. Typically speaking, for a kind of well-rounded full body workout, I would be giving you a chest press, or rather a push and a pull, which would be some version of a chest press, some version of a like a row or a pull. Basically working your chest and your back. Now, as much as I'd love to do that, I've got an injury that I'm recovering from, so I'm going to not do that. I've got a rib injury that is keeping me from doing pushes and pulls right now. So instead, I'm going to go and give you guys what I'm doing today, which is some biceps, triceps, and shoulders. And, of course, we'll go back to quads and hamstrings as well via squats and deadlifts. For the moment, I want you guys to take a second, make sure you go grab your dumbbells, err on the side of lighter, as I am. I myself am lifting with 10-pound dumbbells. Excuse me. I myself am working with 10-pound dumbbells, and that's perfect for me today. And you'll notice in the process of that, because I'm using the 10-pound dumbbells, we're going to be real thoughtful about how we apply the curls and the extensions, so that we do it in a way that gets us a really good workout despite the low weight. So we're going to go a little higher rep is kind of the short way of saying that. Okay. So make sure you pick up your weights nice and carefully. Keep that back nice and flat. Use your legs to lower yourself down and lift that weight back up. Don't use your lower back. Okay, so I want you guys to start with your palms facing forward. As always, we start with our, let me take a step back. Not literally, actually we could literally probably. Make sure that your feet are settled about shoulder width. Nice soft knees. We want to create a little bit of a saddle for our core to sit in. Okay. So from this position, we're going to make sure our palms are facing out. We've got a nice solid grip on our dumbbells. You notice as I'm standing, I'm staying straight up. I'm not leaning forward. I'm not leaning back. Okay. And that's going to be a real key to the movement is by keeping your core engaged, which will be keeping your torso upright by keeping your core engaged. Now notice when we start executing this movement, you're going to see me go through this full range of motion all the way from the top, all the way from the bottom up to the top and back, okay? So you'll see this, I'm going to turn directions here, but you can see that I'm keeping that soft, those soft knees, feet shoulder width apart, core engaged, which is allowing me to keep my torso nice and stable without swinging it back and forth. I'll give you guys another. So see how stable I am as I'm going back and forth. And make sure you don't rest the top or the bottom. Woo! You know what? I don't even need heavier weights. These 10s are doing it already. All right. Notice I'm breathing out as I'm coming up through the concentric phase. We're breathing in as I come down through the eccentric phase. Okay, so she set the weights back down safely, comfortably, keeping that back nice and flat by keeping the core engaged. I got close to failure, but I did not push to true failure. Anytime that we are lifting, we want to make sure that we are working complementary muscle groups in equal amount so that they build and grow the same amount. That had to do with something we were just talking about, but I still don't remember well enough. But anyway, so the idea is we already started working our quads, and because of that, we started working our hamstrings because they are opposing muscle groups. Similarly, we just worked our biceps, so now we're going to make sure we work our triceps, okay? So go ahead and grab just one of the weights that you just had. Now, I've got power blocks, so they're nice and easy. I just go ahead and grab them by their handles, by the weighted part. If you've got regular dumbbells at home, that's fine. Go ahead and just make sure you've got a good grip on it. You know, with the weighted ones, with the regular ones, you've got kind of a knob at the end. You can kind of put your hands around so that you have a nice grip on it, okay? But for me, and for anyone else at home who has power blocks, it makes it a little simpler. So make sure, as always, you lift it nice and carefully. You're going to lift it gently up towards and around our head. Make sure you don't lift it over your head, but around. Oops, excuse me. Let's make sure that we're being decent for all the kiddies at home. There we go. All right. Not that. No one's ever seen boxer line before. Anyway, so see, I almost just lifted it above my head. Make sure that when you're doing it, being very gentle and lifting it around your head, nice and safe. Okay. The movement for the tricep extension is 90 degrees. You start at 90 degrees for the resting point and you go all the way up. Now notice, I'll show you this from this other angle, but don't go past the 90-degree angle. This is not, it puts a lot more pressure on your elbows to go past that point, and it's unnecessary. So this is where we live, okay? Again, we want to go for around 10 for most of us. You might see me go few more because we're doing a little higher rep. But that's again partly because I'm working with the recovering rib injury. So notice as I finished, I didn't whip the weight over and above my head. I finished and went back to resting point, and then I brought it around my head very gently and controlled. And those are triceps. Good job. Okay, so go ahead and grab both the weights, just like we did when we were doing the bicep curls. Set those feet nice and shoulder width, just like you're setting up for a squat, except you don't go down, you just get those soft knees. You're gonna go ahead and lift the weights up so that your elbows are nice and close to your ribs, and the weights are very comfortably kind of being supported by your natural arm positioning. Now notice, from the side, I'm right above my midline here. Now here, I'm not back here, right comfortably where my body naturally goes, okay? Now, along with this movement, you're going to do a palm rotation forward. Okay? Let me show you guys from the front angle here. The idea from that previous angle is simply to say, make sure you don't put it too far in front of you, too far behind you. Notice, each time I'm doing it, bring myself through a full range of motion. Elbows are coming down all the way next to my ribs. Rotating my palms forward. Always keeping my core engaged. Okay. Woo! Now you can see as I got to that last rep, I started to go up and I couldn't really do it. I wouldn't say I was at full failure, but I was right at that point that I want to be where I couldn't do more without rallying myself, I could have probably mom lifting a car off of a baby, those weights, if I really dug down and did that and like growled and got that extra little bit. But that wasn't my last set, so I don't want to do that yet. You'll see on my next set, or rather the last set. We'll see how many we actually get to. But you'll see on the final set that I do that there's a little extra push through that final repetition. But we'll get there when we get there. The idea here is that we are progressively loading our body so that by the end of our workout, we really have, I should say, 3/4 of the way through-ish, we really have the opportunity to expand our challenge point, meaning we reach the point where our muscles aren't going to let us keep lifting weights, whether it be repetitions or more volume. Well, repetitions is volume, or more weight, whichever way of progressive overload that you are driving towards. Okay, so we did a bicep, we did a tricep, we did a shoulder, we did quads, we did hamstrings. We're gonna go back through our warm-ups a little bit. We're gonna go through the circuit one more time, get our heart rate back up. Then we're gonna hit the squats, the deadlifts, although I think we're going to add the 10s into the squats and deadlifts, so 20 pounds total. And then we're going to go another round with the biceps, triceps, and shoulder press. But because I've already spent all this time talking about it, I'm not going to spend nearly as much time talking about it this time through. I'll give you guys little bits as I'm thinking about them, but really you'll see I'm going to semi-superset this entire last bunches of exercises. The superset is putting multiple exercises back to back so you don't get a chance to rest in between. When I talk about doing a semi-superset, that means that I have supersetted them. I'm planning on doing them back to back without resting, though, here's the semi part, I'm leaving myself the opportunity or the option to rest if and when I want to rest, which for me lets me hit it a little bit harder because I know that I'm going to allow myself to rest whenever I want to. So we string a few more exercises together than we might normally do in a regular situation. So knowing that, make sure that you keep that in mind as you're going about your set. You don't need to keep pace with me here. You may blow my pace out of the water. If you are one of those people who are going much faster, I do say try to match my pace, slow it down. But if you're somebody who's already is learning or going slower than I am, don't try to match my pace. Go at your pace. Go for what works right for you. That said, I'm just gonna go ahead and hit it. Okay, so new squats. As always, we settle our feet, get them about shoulder width apart. When you're holding the weights, make sure that you're keeping your shoulder blades back so that you keep good control over those dumbbells. Keep your back nice and flat. These shorts are kind of hard they kind of wrap around my knees. A little harder, but that's okay. Hopefully we don't tear the shorts. Tell you what, because of that, I'm going to make it a little less of a spread wide because it's going to help my shorts. So that's a good example of how you might adjust your technique based on circumstance, okay? Notice I brought my feet closer together because it worked better for the shorts I'm wearing. I don't expect you to go as low as I'm going. Go as low as you're comfortable going. Oh, okay, there we go. Woo! Good job, guys. As I said, make sure, you're not necessarily matching my pace as much as using me as a guidepost. Whilst also, understanding that I am applying different techniques at different times for different reasons. Okay, deadlifts. I know I said I was going to superset them all, but look at me talking. Okay, same thing, feet about shoulder width, hinging at those hips. Okay. Sure, keep it back, that core engaged, back nice and flat. Starting to feel it in the back. Make sure you stop when you need to. I like to put it down with the squat. There's ways to pick it up and put it down with the deadlift, but we'll cover that another day. For now, pick it up and put it down with the squat, then go into the deadlift, which is essentially a Romanian deadlift. Good job. Arms. I didn't say I was going to do another round of the floor exercises, didn't I? See, I almost got out of it myself here. All right, we're going to take a sec, get those floor exercises in now, because I did promise them to you. Okay, back to walking in place with shoulders, small circles going forward to begin with. Remember, keep those hands right around that shoulder joint. Arms nice and high. Well, making a T, not super high. Right around that arm joint. Small circles going back. Big circles going forward. Big circles going back. Okay. Whew. Around to snow jacks. Remember, if you're not comfortable bringing your knee all the way to 90-degree angles, Just bring it to where you're comfortable, okay? Make sure though, if you can, get that full range of extension with those hands around your body. All right, if your shoulders are burning like mine, give them a little shake, not too much, just a real gentle shake, and right back into it. Okay, and then rest. I want to do that for 45 seconds to a minute. I'm not sure exactly where we were. The amount of time, remember, is not magical. The idea is we're giving our bodies enough time to get into the workout and make it a little bit intense, which happens over time. I guess it would be a version of time under tension, but you know, you do enough workout, you can do light workout for a long time and you're gonna get tired. Anyway, not to say this is light by any means. We want to make sure we do safe. This is the one where we start on one side and we kind of squat and step over while making a safe motion with our hands. I'm gonna fix my shorts. These shorts like to get around my knees. There we go. All right. There we go. Cleared the knee. Okay. Again, 30, 45 seconds, depending on what feels right to you. Whew. I think I said 45 seconds to a minute before, huh? Like I said, do it right. It feels right to you. If you want to push yourself harder and make sure you get that minute every time, more power to you. I'm of the opinion that if you stop when you want, you're going to enjoy it more overall. Or I shouldn't say you. That was how it works for me. So approach it the way that it works for you. If you want to go hard, time yourself, go a certain amount of time, that's great. But here, we're going to practice self-regulation and decide when we're done. You know, be done when we want to be done. As all my clients are very used to me hearing. People are like, yeah, when should I be done? I'm like, be done when you're done. When you feel like you're done with a set, that's the perfect time to be done. You always have the opportunity in the future to go harder, whether it's in the same workout or your next. So don't stress it. I might have mixed up the order, but that's okay. Make sure, you want to make sure you do triceps. If you're doing arms, you're going to do triceps, shoulders, and biceps, okay? Notice the better control I just applied. That's what I want you guys. Oh. Okay, that was it for me. Whew, getting spicy in the eyes here. All right. Make sure you got yourself your sweat towel nearby. There it is. Although I'm realizing as I use this as my sweat towel, that this was previously my dust towel. So if you hear me sneezing, you guys will know why. Although, it doesn't seem too dirty. That's not bad, right, guys? Right? Doesn't look too bad. Move it fast enough so you can't see. Settle those feet. Bring it down. Nice and slow and controlled. Notice how I slowed it down. Ah. I'm getting tired. That's what we're talking about, guys. Ah. Woo. All right, we mentioned earlier getting to failure and that challenge point, and using a little bit of our extra oomph to get through it for that last set, or for that last rep. That was a good example of that there. Although the way I'm feeling, I think I've been doing it. I kind of do this without thinking about it progressively because of the fact that I've been doing it a long time. Keep in mind that the ebb and flow of the pace of your workout will develop over time, and it's going to be largely dictated by, or should, I should say, be largely dictated by what you personally enjoy as an individual, as opposed to what other people say you should do. There's various ways to go about learning how to do that. You can go, the slightly longer route of, doing your own internet research, which isn't even slightly longer these days because Google and all that stuff, right? But really the quickest way is always going to be to talk to somebody who is more educated, more experienced, and preferably somebody who is a teacher by trade or hobby, or maybe even just a natural teacher. In this particular business, in this particular industry, that's a personal trainer, okay? So make sure that you reach out either via social media, one of the websites that we have posted here. You can find me at Clayton Taylor, NASM-CPT, and you'll find me across the platforms. And reach out. I'm happy to help you either create a program that works for you, or help you find somebody else who can help you create that program. We are going to finish this workout with a little bit of stretching, a little bit of active stretching. Here's the important thing to note as well. When we're using this low and slow technique, and we're ending with the eccentric phase where we get an extension with the muscle that we're targeting, we're getting a stretch in the process of doing our anaerobic exercise. So if you're using this technique properly, you can actually get away without doing too much active stretching. That said, I'm a fan of active stretching. I have perpetually, since I was a kid, my hamstrings, particularly my hamstrings, always like to get tight on me. So I always make sure that I get a good hamstring stretch, a good quad stretch, and a good upper body stretch, which I don't think that we're going to show on the video today, but we'll talk about in future installments. Okay, so for the first exercise, we're going to do a hamstring stretch. Just like safe, this is another baseball symbology movement here. We call this an umpire stretch because it's looks like how an umpire in baseball would stand. So you go down about as if you're about halfway to a squat. You can even go further down a squat if you're comfortable, but right about here is good. And then from here, what you want to do is you straighten. Oh, sorry. We're going to start that over. Okay. I'm going to lower this a little bit. So umpire stretch. Go down like you're going into a squat. Okay. And then what you do is you straighten those legs so as to create a stretch along the hamstring here. Okay. Let me show you that from the side. Okay. Go down into a squat and then straighten those legs. That creates a stretch right along these hammies here. Okay. Make sure you keep your hands stabilized. Make sure you keep that stretch on those hamstrings. You can continue to drive towards straightening the knees in order to further the stretch. Just make sure you're keeping your back straight the way mine is. As soon as it goes out, you lose the effectiveness of the stretch. So when you're done with this umpire stretch, you want to go for about 30-45 seconds as well. When you're done with it, you want to start by bending the knees and then coming up like a squat. Always protect your lower back by keeping your core engaged, okay? Next, we have our classic quad stretch. This is one of my favorites because we tend to think about it as a quadricep stretch, but really if applied effectively, in my opinion, the most valuable part of it is the hip flexor stretch that you get with it. So we're gonna go and just go right into it. Make sure you're holding on to somewhere. I've got my wall here. Just make sure you're holding on to something stable so that you can maintain your balance. Okay. From this point, it's just gonna be your classic. Okay, go and lift that ankle. And notice I don't have my foot, I got my ankle here. Now, if you need, if you can't quite get there, you can grab a stool or a bench of some sort. In this case, grab this drum throne I have over here, okay? And you're gonna put the foot up there, and then you have preferably something still that won't rotate like this, but you can see how if you have a chair or something, you can still do the stretch even if you can't reach your ankle. But I can, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a standard quad stretch here. Okay. Now here's the real important part. Once you apply this, as most of us have in when we're kids or in PE or whatever, the part that really is important is something that's gonna be almost imperceptible on camera, but it's gonna be really noticeable when you do it in person, which is you're gonna shift this hip forward. Notice there's just a slight difference here. Hip shifted forward, nah. Okay, so you're going to shift that hip forward so you get a nice stretch through that hip flexor as well. Okay. Real nice and gentle, but firm as well. Notice my body's straight up. Maintain contact with the wall for stability. You don't want to lean forward or lean too far forward or lean too far back. Okay. Gently release, switch sides, same thing on the other side, okay? There we go. So, this angle, you notice my body's straight up. Now I shift that hip forward, okay? Not shifted, shifted forward, okay? It's a slight difference, but you'll feel it. Maintain control, or, maintain stability with the wall, or, some other stability point. All right, gently release. Now you notice if you were paying attention, I was kept adjusting through that last stretch. That's okay. If you find yourself not quite settling into it, be willing to adjust. We always have another opportunity to improve it, so don't worry about it too much. Just make sure that you are stopping short of causing pain for yourself by learning how to catch discomforts before they turn into pain. For example, as I was doing that last stretch, I was feeling a little bit of discomfort in my other side here, which is kind of normal. You shouldn't be feeling that necessarily, but it's normal because I'm kind of looking off. I'm doing wonky stuff with my neck. I'm trying to show you guys, and so I might have been doing something a little wonky, and for that reason, I kept adjusting. But now, actually, notice as I'm doing this, I'm nice and stable now. So whatever I was doing before, I'm not doing anymore, and I'm getting a better stretch now. So the idea here is be willing to adjust, be willing to experiment. Movements are a little bit different for everybody. Everybody's got slightly different bodies. And really the most effective way of applying any movement to your own body is through a process of education and experimentation, where you learn what exactly your body can do. That's one of the really valuable things that working with a trainer can bring, is a better understanding not only of your limits and lack of them, but also the best way to manage and explore challenge. Because when we approach these things that are challenging and stressful by nature with an attitude of, I can do this, and it's okay if I don't do it perfectly this time, and it's okay if I don't do it perfectly next time, what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves the opportunity to have a next time. And that's really what this is all about. This is about us spending time with ourselves doing something for ourselves, taking away from our plate of burdens as opposed to adding to them. I hope that you've enjoyed your time here today with me. I know that I've enjoyed my time with you. Stick around. I'll be back. We'll be back. My partner just came in and trolled me. I don't know what she said, but it's probably pretty good. Did you? I did. Thank you guys. Make sure that you follow Clayton Taylor, NASM-CPT, NASM-CPT. Yeah, let's see you guys around. Won't you be my neighbor? That I don't remember what I was saying. Something about weights and something or other. I guess it doesn't really matter. Well, I'll remember if it's important. I remember. Farts, and more farts. Okay. Let's see. So.